Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shae Invidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. I sat down with my girl, Pina Crispo, who is the host of the parenting show on AM 640 radio. She brought me onto her show to start to open up the conversation and important dialogue around women being able to talk about money and things like finances and investing. It is a topic that has been seen as taboo for women for so long. And ladies, it is time for us to shift and break down this narrative and to create a space where women can feel that it is okay to talk about finances. It is okay to actually become financially empowered. And in order to do that, we need to lay down our financial foundation. We need to start understanding financial literacy, which means we need to start talking about money. We need to start talking about investing and strategies. And so on her show, we dive into this, and it was so good that I needed to bring it onto the podcast. So here it is for you. I hope you enjoy.
This is The Parenting Show with Pina Crispo from chicmama.ca. Toronto's news, today's talk, 640 Toronto.
Happy Sunday and welcome to The Parenting Show. I'm your host, Pina Crispo of chicmama.ca. And tonight we are going to talk all things money, and I'm ready to learn. Like, I am excited about this show. My special guest is my girl, Shae Invidiata, and she is an impact entrepreneur, luxury realtor, and host of the Freedom CEO podcast. And she's got a really cool workshop coming up on the 17th called the Audit, and it's the path to financial empowerment, which, Shae, I need, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pina, for having me. You know, I always love coming on, and I'm excited to be here today.
I'm so excited too, because like we talk about all kinds of different things. I've had you on the show to talk about your work in the human trafficking and sex trafficking world and how to empower women and how to, avoid dangerous things like that happening to you. And then I've had you on the show where we talked about our wellness, our health, and what was the word? Implanters?
Explanting, yeah.
Explanting, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And your journey in that.
Yeah.
But today is totally different. We're talking money.
We are talking money. And for those that maybe don't know, explanting is when you like remove your breast implants. So yeah, we're doing a bit of a 180, going from one wellness to another, okay? Physical realm, right? Chemical free and the wellness of our bodies, and flipping it over to the wellness of our finances and our financial health. So, still works.
Yeah. And I'm glad you explained what explanting is, because someone at home is probably wondering, like, what, are we moving a tree from the backyard to the front?
100%. Yeah.
No, has nothing to do with that. Yeah. But tonight's focus is all about money. And I think that, like, what better time to talk about that than right now? Everyone I talk to is dealing or in some kind of financial crisis. And it's really, really scary. And a lot of the people are females.
Right.
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, and you let me first say, you're absolutely right that the importance of now is so crucial. And it's actually what prompted our conversation to even come on the show. Feeling the same thing as I've had so many conversations with women over the past 6 months, and there were many people, it doesn't even matter the level of your wealth.
everything has changed in the world. Cost of living has gone up, inflation's gone up, interest rates have gone up. So no matter where you're at, you're feeling it in your businesses, you're feeling it in your cash flow. If you don't know what that is,
Yep.
part of why we're talking about this today, right? But your cash flow, meaning the money you have coming into your bank account from business, and people are feeling the pinch that's happening, and you're having to readjust. And for, I'm going to say, the majority of women, it's turning them to I don't know what to do. I'm extremely stressed. I really don't understand actually money and how to make it work for me. And that paralyzes you. And so this is what I'm seeing amongst women more now than ever before in the last like 15 years that I've worked with women heavily, of course, in being in real estate. And we could talk all day, or all night, I should say, on the show, just about the stories of different women over the years that they don't have an understanding of their finances or investing or strategies. And it paralyzes you. And so this is what we want to talk about today. And, one of the most frustrating things for me, and I'm so grateful for you, I love that, like, anytime I come to Pina with this, like, I'm passionate about this, we need to talk about this. What do you think? Does this resonate? And she's like, F yes, you need to come on the show. Like, let's talk about it. But it's so important for women, for us to be able to talk about money, and it's so taboo, right?
Yes.
Like, we've been very much shamed into wanting even to make money. When you think about traditional roles of females, okay, the traditional role is you stay home and you're the caretaker, you're the nurturer for the home. So it's oftentimes, even just to have that desire to go out and work, to have the desire to make money or to be independent, still you can be coexisting with your partner. It doesn't mean I have to be solo, but just be independent and have your own understanding, have your own passions in pursuing those. Very much the culture that we lived in for decades upon decades.
Yes,
Shamed that.
totally.
Right. And so I still think there's this, I still feel that so much of this conversation is shaped around this shaming culture, that if you want to be a woman in business, if you want to be a woman to make money, understand it, that's not really your role, and like, stay in your lane. And I'm like, F that. Like, we need to know.
That's right. F that.
Right? We need to know. I'm like, yeah. So I'm grateful for you, because I think conversations like this start to shift the narrative and start to give women permission to have these conversations and just start asking questions, like breaking that silence, right? That we're allowed to talk about it. We have permission.
Absolutely. And I think we do, like you said, we need to have these conversations. They're important conversations to be had. And even if you just look at families, in this day and age, if both, mom and dad, or whatever the family looks like, to you, if both parties are not working,
right,
they're probably struggling right now. So this is also a relief to the other partner who may be out there working, the breadwinner, the one who has all the stress, saying like, oh my gosh, I really need to like bring in more hours, maybe take another job or invest. But how do I invest? What do I invest in? So it's like, I know we're talking a lot about females and the women, but dads out there, don't go anywhere, because, this pertains to you as well, and coming together as a team, right? Like you said, Shae, it's for the longest time, it's always been the mom, the females, the nurturer, like you said, right? And the dad is the breadwinner, and it is time to change that narrative. It is time to talk about what is out there, what we can do, how we can help one another. And so we can have, you know what I mean? Like this beautiful family and enjoy each other without having to worry about that financial burden, which I think, like I said, earlier on, so many people are going through and dealing with right now. And it does not have to be that way.
Totally.
So where do we start? What do we like? Where does someone start with this?
Yeah.
Like, is it like, Do we need to take out our checkbooks now? Are we balancing our checkbooks?
Well,
Am I buying Bitcoin? What's going on?
right? Right? No, I love it. I love it. And yeah, you should definitely bring out your check. I mean, who even has checkbooks today? I'm like, although like I'm in my office and I'm sure there's checkbooks here somewhere. So like, but okay, so you said two things. Like we're gonna come back to this conversation and really dive into like, yeah, like where do you start? If you are in a household where there's two people and you just gave a shout out to the men, and I think maybe we bring them into this like right now, because I think that the dynamic within the household needs to be reframed, that all of the pressure or all of the responsibility doesn't have to, it can, but it doesn't have to fall all on one person. And the way that we have changed and evolved in culture is that women actually do have a desire to, you can be both. You can still be the nurturer and take care of the home, and still, for a lot of women, feeling like they also have another purpose in creating, contributing to something for a monetary exchange that also then supports the household. And that conversation, I think when you have that conversation with your partner, where the man or whoever the leader is in the household, I'll say, gives that other partner permission to pursue what they're passionate about, but then also come into the conversation around, what does your financial picture look like, right? Like, what is the money that's coming into the house? So what's your cash flow that comes in every single month? And then what are your expenses? What are your bills that are money going out every single month? And starting to get really clear on that first. And that's even for, and we're going to circle back to this and going into a deep dive. But I want to just share this really quick, is that when you start giving each other permission to enter into these conversations, this is where, and you just said the word earlier, but this is where you actually form a team.
Yeah.
That's what a real partnership is. And I love using the team analogy, because we all know what a team is. There's a team captain, there's usually an assistant captain, and then you have the players. Well, if you're a household of two, then you got a captain, you have an assistant captain, or you have a captain and you got a team player. But there's two. And without one, you just have a dictatorship, right? Like a captain can't be a captain if he doesn't have a contributor, somebody to pass stuff off to, and then be responsible for that, right? When a captain passes the puck, passes the ball, whatever, that other player has a responsibility. And so you're still there, the decision and the ownership still comes from that leadership person, but you're still involving and you still take into consideration, and more than just in consideration, you heed what the other person has to say, meaning you have respect for what the other person has to say. But how can you have respect for what the other person has to say if they have zero knowledge on the topic? And so that's where we're going to start. That's why you need to start thinking.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's exactly what we're going to do here tonight on the Parenting Show with Shae Invidiata. We are talking all things money. We are here to empower you, educate you, and help you feel better about your money situation. We are talking moolah. We're talking cash. We're talking money. We're talking finances, investments, and everything in between with my girl, Shae Invidiata. She is an impact entrepreneur, luxury realtor, and host of the Freedom CEO podcast. Shae, we're off to a really good start here, and I love the fact that we're talking about this, because I think we need to talk about this. Now is the time. And it's not only for, I know that we're focusing on the women, but it's not only for women. Guys, you play a role in this too, and our kids do as well. And they always say that our kids learn from us, right? They always look to us.
Yeah,
and like, that's one thing that I'm always thinking about, Shae, is that like, if I don't have my stuff together, if I don't have my ducks lined up in a row, I am terrified of what my kids are going to be like down the road. Right. What if something what if I get the words out of my mouth, what if something were to happen to me? Right. Where does that leave them? So all of this is stuff that we need to talk about. And we're gonna do that with you, and we're gonna learn tonight. So get those notepads out and your pens ready to go. Okay, so Shae,
Great. So
where?
can I just like dive in off of what you just said?
Yes, go.
Because, before we went to break, we were talking about like where we should start. And I was going to start somewhere completely different. But you just brought up what are my kids going to be like when they get older if I don't have my ducks in a row?
Yeah.
And part of one of the first things you need to address with yourself when we start talking about money and investing is not just your money mindset, but like your relationship with money. And guess where your relationship and your money mindset starts? When you're a kid.
Yeah, it's from our
And
parents.
so you're concerned about your kids right now and how their financial well-being is going to be when they're older. And that's fantastic. And I encourage parents to think about how they are speaking about money around their children. What's their energy? Is it scarcity? Is it fear-based? Is it excitement? Do you overspend? There's all of these different energies that we apply around money in this household, which actually conditions your children to form an opinion and a mindset around, is money good or bad? Is money a scarcity thing? Is money, lack thereof, constantly in poverty? Is it feast or famine? Like you get a whole bunch of it, but it's not safe to hold on to money, so you spend it. We all have a narrative that we grew up with. And so I actually encourage even yourself, but even, those of you listening, think back to your earliest memory as a childhood around finances. And can you think about what you heard, usually around the kitchen table, right? Usually around dinner conversations. Sometimes it can be, can you imagine when you were out somewhere and you wanted something to buy, right? Like if you're in the toy store and you say, Mommy, can I have this? Daddy, can I have this? And what's the response? Is it, we can't afford it? We don't have the money for it? Is it indulging more because you already have an abundant of, and mom and dad just would always buy you whatever they want because they could? So think back to those first memories, and then you take it along a later path around who were the key people in your life. Maybe could be cultural. What does your culture growing up having to say about what money is? Is it good? Is it bad? Scarcity, lack, like what is that relationship? And then also some of the key people who influenced you in your life. And how did they respond to money? How did they live? What was their viewpoint on it? And what was their understanding? Because we all carry today.
Yeah, you're bang on.
Right?
It's from our childhood, right?
Right.
And that's where we learn that relationship with money, right? Is it something like, oh my God, I always have to save? Or is it something like, oh, you know what I mean? Like as soon as I get it, it's out. Like,
Right.
what is that like?
Right.
And so for women that maybe have never had to work, let's just say, they're at home, they're the stay-at-home mom, they don't maybe even have an idea of
Mhm.
what is going on
Yeah.
with their bank account. Like,
Yeah.
where do we start with that?
Well, you should open it.
That'd be a great start. Yes.
Yeah, you should open it. And okay, think of money as a new friend that you just met. Maybe you met them
I
at
want a lot of new friends, Shae.
right? Okay, well, we can do that. We're going to manifest that. We're going to call it in. You want a lot of new friends. And when you meet these different people, what do? You go out and you spend time and you get to know them. You ask questions. Where do they like to hang out? What do they like to eat? The music, their family background, right? Like you invest your time to learn about that person. And only by doing that, you can develop a relationship. And it's no different with finances. Is if you have a bank account that you never look at, because some people are like fear, they're like, they don't want to open up bills, they don't want to see bills. The phone rings, maybe it's CRA, they don't want to pick up the calls, right? So it's this avoidant. Well, if you avoid this new person you want to get to know, you're never going to be able to get to know them, right? So we have to, again, give our own selves permissions that maybe you don't like what you're going to see at this moment in time. But the beautiful, the most powerful realization is we're in the driver's seat and we have the control to change it at any moment. And it starts with one decision. It could be small, but it starts with one decision, has an impact, it compounds, and it'll have a ripple effect. So the first thing is you got to get familiar with your bank account. You have to get familiar with your spending habits. So looking at how much money is coming in, you should know that. You should know every single month, unless you're like, you're like me, I'm in commissions, right? Like I'm in real estate. So like, I don't have a steady income that comes in. I don't have a salary base where I'm like, every single month I have X amount. It's like, sometimes you have closings in a month and sometimes it's 2 months or 3 months apart, right? So real estate, realtors are a whole different beast. Realtor women, I could just do a webinar just for them, because that's a whole different beast. But you should typically know how much money you have coming in, and then what's your overhead, right? What are your expenses? Another word for that would be what is your total carrying cost each month? And your carrying cost, another word for that is your operational cost, meaning if you own a house, you're going to have property taxes. You have your different utility bills. If you're in a condo, you have your maintenance fees. If you're in the US, they're called HOA fees, but you're going to have your property maintenance fees every single month. Your insurance, your car payment, whether that's leasing or financing, right? Like tally up all of your expenses and start getting a clear picture on the money that's going out. Now there's two different types of expenses. I'm going to say that to put it in like layman's term, you have they're fixed expenses, right? That that are not going to change and that you have to have.
Mhm.
Like your car insurance, so you can drive your car, your phone bill, so that you can be plugged in, your internet, because that's how we all really operate in today's day and world. That's how we're doing the show today. Like all of those, you have to have these expenses. Then there's the other expenses that you spend that maybe you don't need to have, but you enjoy to have them. And maybe there's some that you shouldn't be spending, period. And you want to start to assess on what could I actually eliminate from my life, or I could cut back on, right? For example, I get my nails done every 2 weeks. That's an expense that I enjoy with pleasure, and I'm not going to cut out, but I still tally that up to know what that expense is. Coffee for a lot of people is another one. And a lot of people have no idea how much money
they spend on that. I know, right?
Especially now.
Yeah.
Like some places it's like $8 for a coffee, and you see some people going like 3 times a day. And if you can, and like I was actually on a call with a girlfriend of mine, and I was telling her about my coffee, and I'm like, and with pleasure, I spend that money, but I also can't. So for me, I'm like, it's with pleasure, and that's my energy around that spending, which that's a whole other conversation which we can dive into. But because that energy is with pleasure, I'm going to receive that back from the universe, because money is just a currency of energy, which is a whole other realization for women. But there's those things that you spend money on and you go, I really shouldn't be spending this right now.
Oh.
I don't have the money to spend this right now, but you do it anyways.
Yeah.
That's not good. That's not good energy. That's like bad juju, right? You're telling the universe that you don't respect the money you have, and you can't be responsible if you're given more. So those are the type of expenses we want to think about.
You really need to like sit down and evaluate everything. What are the necessities? What are the I must have this to survive?
Right.
i.e. your mortgage, like you said,
Yeah.
insurance, you could drive a car, or a payment, for your vehicle, whatever it may be, groceries.
Yeah.
You need to survive.
Yeah.
We need those, which is a huge cost right now,
It is.
and then you have the ones like you said, there are going to be some that, I don't need to survive, but I really like to have this. So I'm going to make the room for that. And then there's the nonsense, and we need to cut that out.
Right. And I actually love how you frame that. That's a really good word, the nonsense, because life, what's the point if you're not enjoying life, if you're not having fun, right? So we need to enjoy life. It also keeps our vibration high. And when your vibration high, it puts you on a higher frequency to receive money.
Yes.
Okay. So we still want to maintain joy and happiness and things that give you pleasure. Like for me, my coffee gives me pleasure. Going and getting my nails done gives me pleasure, right? But like going out shopping and just buying more clothes for the sake of buying more clothes, like that's kind of nonsense. I don't necessarily need to do that, right? Like going on a shopping spree once in a while, that's pleasure, that's joy. But
Yes.
you know yourself and you know the nonsense category versus like this gives me joy and this is like my pleasure routine, like a coffee or whatever your could be a tea, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Your green matcha latte, whatever. But you got to get really, really clear. And this is why I'm actually doing this workshop, but you got to create an audit on your finances and getting clarity on where you actually are versus where you think you are. And I'm going to share
Because that, not to cut you off, but
No.
those two places can be drastically different.
Very different.
Yes.
And I want to share an example with everybody. And again, I'm in real estate. So I was in Mississauga. I went to go do a listing presentation. I'm walking through the house with the wife to be able to build the evaluation. I go through your home, I take notes, I ask questions. And so the wife's taking me through. And I go downstairs and she's telling me about, her marriage and why they're moving. And I say, so how long have you been in this house? She goes, 20 years. 20 years she's been in this house. I ask her, so is the hot water tank rented or owned? She goes, I don't know. I go, oh my God. Okay. So this is a prime example that even if she's not the one paying the finances or paying the bills, which she's clearly not, the fact of the matter is for 20 years, you may or may not have an expense that's leaving your account anywhere between $150 to $250 every single month. And you don't know. You either have $0 leaving or that other amount leaving. And that's the important part. She, in her head, is somewhere completely different in her finances that she thinks she is versus the reality of where she actually might be without knowing. And so this is why an audit is important. This is why we have to be doing this work.
Conversations like this just light me up. And I hope you're loving today's episode too. My friend, can I ask a quick favor of you? Could you please hit the subscribe or follow button? You have no idea how much that helps this show grow. So discussions like this can reach others as well. And if you want to go the extra mile, please leave a review. Your thoughts and feedback mean so much to me. After all, this show is created for you. Okay, that's it. Let's get back to it.
Welcome back to the Parenting Show with Pina Crispo from chicmama.ca. Toronto's news, today's talk, 640 Toronto.
It is Sunday night, and you are tuned into the Parenting Show right here on 640 Toronto. I'm your host, Pina Crispo of chicmama.ca, and I've got my girl and returning guest of the show, Shae Invidiata, joining us. She is a luxury realtor. She's the host of the Freedom CEO podcast. She's an impact entrepreneur. She's an all-around amazing woman, and she's got a really cool workshop coming our way. It's called the Audit, the Path to Financial Empowerment, and that's happening on July 17th. Shae, we're talking all things money on the show tonight. And right before the break, you brought up the example of walking through a house with one of your clients, getting it ready for one of your listings, and the homeowner, the female, did not know how to answer you when it came to a question you asked her on whether or not they rent or they bought the water heater, correct?
That is.
That sounds to me, and she's lived in this house. They've lived in the house for 20 years. So for 20 years, she has no idea.
Yes.
That's scary. That is really, really scary. And we went to break, and all I could think about was, but are the conversations not being had?
Mm-hmm.
Are there no lines of communication that she is talking to her partner about and saying, hey, so what's going on? These are all the expenses we have for the house. And I should know.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And this goes back to what we were chatting about earlier of the importance of creating a teamship between between the partners in the house.
Yeah.
Right? To have the conversation. From an efficiency standpoint, it's probably easiest to have one person paying all of the bills. That's totally cool and fine. But you both should be in the know about what are the expenses, money coming in, money coming out. And once you start having these conversations, it really starts to change the dynamic in the household. You actually get to be able to become creative in how you actually can make even more money, because now you're starting to understand finances. And a lot of things that I see with women, even with just trying to establish like their own credit, never mind, like if divorce is like an unfortunate possibility, right? Like at the end, and I see this all the time, right? Women who are going through a divorce in their mid 50s to 60 years old, and they have no idea about how to invest. They don't understand the language of money because somebody always took care of that for them. And they also don't have their own established credit. So, and I had recently,
Big one.
yeah, it's a huge one. And so I had a listing that was a very high-end luxury rental. And again, this woman, she was 55 years old, had healthy alimony, meaning she's getting like, basically payment amounts from her ex-husband, but had zero established credit, because all of the credit cards were under him and she was a supplementary. The phone plan was under him. She was a supplementary. And so you think about divorce and you're like, okay, well, that's like so negative. And, how do I have that conversation with my partner? Because you're married now and happy, but what if you're not in the future? But never mind even that. What if, unfortunately, he passes away? Have that conversation, because then what happens? If your partner passes away and has all of the established credit, you're going to be in that same boat. People are going to feel extra sorry for you because now you're a widow, but you don't know the logins to your bank accounts. You don't know the logins to all of your bill payments. You have no established credit. And so start thinking about this and put yourself on your own phone plan. Put yourself on your own credit card. You can still have joint, but you can still have it in a way that it goes underneath your credit so that you have that established for you, And so these are some of the things you could start doing right now just to start changing the dynamic in the household. And then for women, one thing I really, this is part of why I'm even doing the workshop, is to start to establish a foundation of financial fluency, meaning understanding the language of money and getting your financial literacy down. Like a couple times on here already, explaining things like cash flow, net operating income, that's more on the commercial side. So that most people won't need to know, but still you should understand what's the difference between gross and net. And right there, it's like, if you don't know what your gross revenue is versus like what your net revenue is, you got to start learning that. Right. And so simply, just for any women out there, or maybe even men, who go, I don't know, your gross is like what your total is before anything is deducted, before any expenses are taken out of your gross. And then after that, you're going to get what your net is, which typically you'll hear like what your net profit is. So you have your gross revenue that comes in, but your profit isn't established until you have eliminated and you've deducted all of your expenses or your costs or your carrying costs against your revenue, against your business. And that could be your own personal income as well, right? Like, so when you look at your personal income coming into the household, and then after you deduct all of your expenses and all of the things that you need, then you're going to come out with what you're left over. You wouldn't call that a profit for your household, but you would call it your net household income.
Yeah.
Right. So these are the type of things that we need to start having conversations, and women need to start learning to become familiar with when they're sitting at a dinner table, or when they're talking to a financial advisor, that they don't feel blindsided or something's gone over their head simply because of language, because of words. And so many women don't realize that there's even a language of money to even have to learn and understand. And so this is why we need to talk about this today.
No, absolutely. Like, you're saying this, and like, it boggles my mind, because I'm thinking to myself, are there people out there that don't know what I would think are these simple terms like gross and net, right? Also, because a lot of schools are now teaching financial literacy to our kids. So I'm like, oh my gosh, is it going to be one of those things too, where like our kids are coming home and they are teaching us? This is why this conversation is so important, you know? And of course, we're having this conversation with Shae Invidiata. She is my guest today. She's an impact entrepreneur, a luxury realtor, host of the Freedom CEO podcast. And she's actually going to be doing a workshop on all of this and more. It's called the Audit, the Path to Financial Empowerment. It's happening on Zoom. It's a Zoom workshop, everyone, on July 17th at 7:30 p.m. Shae, okay, so we just finished talking a little bit about financial literacy, and then I was just like, what? People don't know some of these terms? Like, how is that possible when, and thank God that it is part of curriculum at school, that they're starting to, yeah, now that they're starting to talk about financial literacy because they see just how important it is, right? And so the other thing that I think is really important is the fact that, you know, in this day and age, and I keep saying that because I feel like, you know, this is the time where it's just like everyone's struggling. One income is really difficult to survive off of, especially if we're talking about a family here, right? So we need to start looking at different ways we can bring money in.
Mhm.
So what do we do there? Like, what if you've never worked? What if you've never worked? You just start doing a resume and like be like, oh, I hope I get a high paying salary job.
Yeah,
Like,
probably not. Probably
right?
not. And, prior to, I love you sharing that your kids are like learning about finances in school because that was never the case when we were growing up.
Never.
And it was intentionally that way. The system has been designed so that you learn enough to get a job, but you don't learn too much that you want to become an entrepreneur because you realize that outside of the system, outside of the 9 to 5, and they hear me out. There's nothing wrong with it. If that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's not designed to make you thrive and become wealthy. How many 9 to 5ers who aren't sitting at the top do you know that are extremely wealthy on just that stream of income? Because I can tell you that if they are 9 to 5ers who are wealthy, it's because they have multiple figures, multiple streams of income coming in, and they have become an investor, which they have laid their own foundation for financial literacy in order to become an investor. But they're not just relying on that one stream of income. It's almost impossible to say that like you can become wealthy from just that one stream, especially if you're in a 9 to 5. And so it's starting to think outside of the box that we have been conditioned in, that having a 9 to 5 job is safe, having a pension is safe, having a retirement fund that you pay into is safe. These aren't bad things, but they certainly don't build you crazy freedom. You're definitely not building a substantial amount of wealth and what we call generational wealth. And this is what should be happening for women. Women have, we have crazy life force ability to create within us. If you are a woman,
Yeah.
you have the ability to create life within you. You are so much more powerful than you realize. Your creative abilities goes far beyond that 9 to 5, one stream of income. It's in you to create. It's in you to actually become abundant and to create wealth. And the way to do that is by becoming an investor. And so that may be acquiring real estate, right? Starting to have passive income that's coming in. It could also mean putting some stuff into the market, into the stock market. It could be putting some money into an insurance plan where you can then start to shield tax and you can borrow against it and it goes up every single year contractually. That's within a contract that so many people don't realize there are insurance plans out there that are available. And so there's different ways that you can start to building your wealth. And also we live in an era, that it has never been easier to start something online, especially if you are a stay-at-home mom. Like I want to go back to your example. You're like, what if I'm a stay-at-home mom and I've never worked and I don't know what to do? girl, you have so many teachable talents by being a stay-at-home mom, from like, is your house like super organized, and how to declutter your home, how to keep your house clean when you have kids and little people running around, to maybe it's cooking, right? Like, how are you feeding little ones? And is there a mom secret that you do? There's probably something that people constantly tell you that you do well, or that they really admire from about you, or that they get your advice and they
It's
seek you
so
out,
true.
right?
It's so true. It's all like they say, you know what I mean? And it's the answers are within us.
Always,
As corny as it sounds, that's what they say,
always.
And with that thought, I gotta say, one of my dear girlfriends, she worked from home, did an online business, worked with a cosmetic company, and grew a team of over 500 women underneath her. Was making six figures.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Right. So it is extremely doable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It's possible.
And so I know that like we just touched upon
I
this
know.
tonight, right? Like as we're getting right into like the meat and potatoes, like
No.
that's it, guys. The show's over. But there is a part two kind of happening, and that is with the workshop that you are going to be hosting on July 17th at 7:30 p.m. It's called the Audit. It's the path to financial empowerment. And you're going to talk all about this and more, right, Shae?
Yes. Yeah. We are going to be going in for a very powerful 90 minutes. We're going to get really clear. You're going to establish clarity on your finances and building out your foundation around financial literacy, your fluency, kind of what I call like a financial awakening. I want women to show up and leave feeling super financially empowered, and that they're going to be able to we're going to establish it in the workshop, is what I call aligned action commitment. So what are the things you're going to start doing that are measurable, that you're going to start moving the needle in your household, in your finances, and ultimately you're going to be on the path to becoming a wealthy woman, and changing that narrative and making money sexy, and understanding like money wants you, like that thing you want also wants you. And we are going to reframe and restructure the money mindset that you've had. We're going to break down some of those narratives, and we're going to, like I said, we're going to reframe it so that you walk away going, I feel so good. I'm becoming financially empowered, and money is sexy, and I deserve that. Money deserves me. That's the
I
goal.
want new friends, aka money. That's what you called it before. And I want sexy money, Shae. I put it out
Yes.
there in the universe.
Yes. I love it.
So everyone, guys, if this is something that is of interest to you, you want to learn more, go check it out. The Audit, the path to financial empowerment, July 17th, 7:30. And Shae, where can they sign up?
Easiest is come find me on Instagram, Shae Invidiata. You can register, the links on my bio, or you can DM me the word audit and I'll send the link directly to you. And I'd love to connect with you on Instagram. If you have questions, let me know. So come hang out with me, come follow me, Shae Invidiata on Instagram, and I'll hook you up with the link.
There you go, guys. I'm also check out my stories because I will also be posting some of Shae's stuff. And it's Shae, ShaeInvidiata. I hope you were writing that down. But that is it for us. We are all done, but I will catch you next week, same time, same place. Shae, thank you so much for joining me. And have a wonderful Sunday night, everyone. I'm Pina Crispo, and this is The Parenting Show.
My friend, I hope that you love this episode just as much as I enjoyed being on Pina's show, talking about this important topic. And if you're sitting there going, goodness, I wish that I could have been in the webinar, I could have attended the masterclass. Guess what? You are in luck. I have good news for you. The replay is available to you through this podcast by clicking on the link in the description notes below. Or you can head over to my Instagram, send me a DM with the word audit, and I will send you a link that goes directly to the workshop where you will get a 26-page workbook, and you can go through this masterclass at your own pace, at your own time. You can come back to it. You can reference it whenever you want. That is the best part about a replay. So I hope you tune in. I hope you get great value from it. And I would love nothing more than for you to share with me a few things that you have learned that you are taking away, and now you're going to start implementing into your life to build your own financial freedom and become financially empowered. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shae Invidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.